Hi, it's Paula. I'm here with Richard and Janet and Nessa, and James is remote, and of course my son Tom on drums. And this is Common Book Show. Thank you for joining us. I am going to start the show with Eckhart Tolle. I have been spending a little time with Mr. Tolle. I listened to a book on Libby called A New Earth, and I found many of the ideas very helpful, but they were things that I have heard of from the Stoics and from other psychologists and things like that. So these are not new ideas, or from Buddhism. You know, there are just a lot of things about being present in the moment and all these things. And so I thought, hey, I'm gonna get a copy of this book because there was a lot that I was not missing, but I heard it once and then I don't have a great memory, so I was forgetting it. And so I went to the bookstore. This was on my birthday. Greg bought this for me for my birthday. And I went to the psychology section because a lot of the ideas were psychology. Not there. So I went to the self-help section because a lot of the ideas were self-help. Not there. I went and I asked the girl, I said, do you have any Eckhart Tolle? And she said, oh, that's in spirituality. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. And I thought, I wouldn't have looked for it there. But I can see why it's there because some of his ideas, you know, have to do with the shared spirit, you know, the whole idea that everything's connected and it's bigger than one person and there's no such thing as, I mean, your ego gets in your way of your true self and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I wanted to read a passage because I'm finding him really interesting, and it's pretty long, but it's called Carrying the Past. And you'll see some ideas in here, Richard, that you'll be familiar with from like Buddhism and other things that we've talked about in the past. Okay. The inability, or rather unwillingness, of the human mind to let go of the past is beautifully illustrated in the story of two Zen monks, Tanzan and Aikido, who were walking along a country road that had become extremely muddy after a heavy rain. Near a village, they came upon a young woman who was trying to cross the road, but the mud was so deep it would have ruined the silk kimono she was wearing. Tanzan at once picked her up and carried her to the other side. The monks walked on in silence. 5 hours later, as they were approaching the lodging temple, Aikido couldn't restrain himself any longer. Why did you carry that girl across the road? He asked. We monks are not supposed to do things like that. And he responds, I put the girl down hours ago, said Tanzan. Are you still carrying her? Now imagine what life would be like for someone who lived like Aikido all the time, unable or unwilling to let go internally of situations, accumulating more and more stuff inside, and you get a sense of what life is like for the majority of people on the planet. What a heavy burden of the past they carry around with them in their minds. The past lives in you, in your memories, but memories in themselves are not a problem. In fact, it is through memory that we learn from the past and from past mistakes. It's only when memories, that is to say, thoughts about the past, take you over completely that they turn into a burden, turn problematic, and become part of your sense of self. Your personality, which is conditioned by the past, then becomes your prison. Your memories are invested with a sense of self, and your story becomes who you perceive yourself to be. This little me is an illusion that obscures your true identity as a timeless and formless presence. Your story, however, consists not only of mental but also of emotional memory, old emotion that is being revived continually, as in the case of the monk who carried the burden of his resentment for 5 hours by feeding it with his thoughts. Most people carry a large amount of unnecessary baggage, both mental and emotional, throughout their lives. They limit themselves through grievances, regret, hostility, guilt. Their emotional thinking has become their self, and so they hang on to the old emotion because it strengthens their identity. Because of the human tendency to perpetuate old emotion, almost everyone carries in his or her energy field an accumulation of old emotional pain, which I call the pain body. We can, however, stop adding to the pain body that we already have. We can learn to break the habit of accumulating and perpetuating old emotions by flapping our wings, metaphorically speaking, and refrain from mentally dwelling on the past, regardless of whether something happened yesterday or 30 years ago. We can learn not to keep situations or events alive in our minds, but to return our attention continuously to the pristine, timeless present moment, rather than be caught up in mental movie making. Our very presence then becomes our identity, rather than our thoughts and emotions. Nothing ever happened in the past that can prevent you from being present now. And if the past cannot prevent you from being present now, what power does it have? I know that was long, but I just liked, and to me this is a lot of like Seneca talks about stuff like this, and and Jung talks about stuff like that. I mean, there's just so much of what he's writing. It like he kind of brings all these things together, and of course Buddhism. But I just thought he put it beautifully. And there is a lot of hocus pocus in here too. But you know, you don't have to agree with everything that's in someone's book. You know.
Well, how much of the past that we remember is imaginary, and how much of it is like a documentary of what happened? For example, you might say, oh, that is one of my favorite movies. I saw it when it first came out 20 years ago. Then you watch the movie and you say, I sort of remembered it differently than it was.
You know, I was gonna show my granddaughters the Fame, the movie that it's like a dance movie, and I was going to show it to them. I remembered it as being really inspirational, like about this girl breaking out of her background and getting into this ballet school. It was filthy. I watched it over again, and there were some parts in it that I'm glad I didn't expose. Now, I mean, it was there were things that I'd forgotten, but I did like the movie, and I still liked it, but I didn't remember those parts. I only remembered what spoke to me at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's like our memory is made up of fragments.
yeah.
And then in the present, we fill in the fragments and create a story.
And also, when you're 15 or 16 years old and you see something, you're in an emotional state, in a developmental state that's different from what, you know. I went back and watched a few movies that I thought that I loved, and they're meaningless, you know, because they were saying something new to me at the time that I'd never heard before, you know, and now it's old hat, you know, so.
Wasn't there a lot of dancing in that movie?
There was a lot of dancing in that movie,
Yeah.
but there was also a lot of talking and screwing.
Oh my goodness, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, well, I forgot about it too. I didn't remember that part. She, you know, they would talk a lot about sex, and then she was having a lot of sex, and I didn't remember that part at all.
Wasn't John Travolta?
No, that was Saturday Night Fever.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, but this one is
Yeah, and there's
similar.
right, and the same thing with that one. That one was something else. There was a rape scene in that movie that I totally forgotten about.
Oh, crap.
Not in Fame, in Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
So, you know, you forget though, you don't remember everything. And it is interesting to rewatch something. Oh, I tried to watch some, used to love Hercules movies when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved them. And so I brought one over to the house, Renee's house, and I sat there with the kids and watched it. And the kids were like, they were like, not, like, "Oh, really, Grandma, do we really have to finish watching?" But that's
They
how I
didn't
got,
like it.
yeah, that's how I got interested in Greek mythology. It was through those silly movies. Yeah.
Did you ever have a false memory about a movie?
Yeah.
Can you share it with us?
I can't really dredge it up into my mind, but there used to be this cartoon called The Oblongs that I thought was really good. It was really demented. And it was about this poor family that lived in the valley, and the rich people lived up on the mountain. And all the waste from the factory would roll down the mountain into the valley, and everyone in the valley was poor, and they were mutants. And they worked in the factory. And the main character, the father, didn't have arms and legs, and he would bounce around because he was born without them from the mutation from the chemicals. And his wife didn't have hair, and she wore a fake wig, and the kids were all screwed up. And I thought it was the best thing I ever saw for a long time. Then I tried watching a disc of it I think last year, and it did nothing for me.
It sounds really political, doesn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, very political. With the idea of the rich people on the hill.
Oh,
and
it's great.
Yeah,
It does have some good themes, but
yeah.
I thought it was more impactful when I first saw it.
Maybe same thing. It was the first time you had come in contact with those ideas, and so it meant something to you.
I liked it up to like 4 years after I saw it, but then after that, for some reason, it just didn't hit
Yeah.
me at all.
Yeah. Well, we all evolve, you know. We all.
And hopefully.
Yeah. Exactly. Hopefully.
Janet, are you still evolving?
No.
You're not evolving. I
No.
hope you would be.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of. It depends. Maybe you're at where you want to be.
No.
Definitely not.
So, anyway, it's been a couple weeks because I was sick last week with a bad cold, and so we haven't had a chance to talk.
Did you have Pac-Man fever?
Pac-Man fever. No. No, I inherited a cold from my grandchildren.
Interesting way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Richard, I know that you've got like a slew of stuff on your list. You must for the last 2 weeks.
I do. I got a question for the people here. And that is, do you know who this is?
Oh, yes.
Tom, can you put the screen up since my buttons don't work, since you deprogrammed them?
Oh,
Khaleesi.
I don't know who that is. No.
Okay, it's a character from the Game of Thrones series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have guessed it by the costume. But
She was great until the last season, which I consider to not exist.
you've written that off, eh?
So in the news today, a Florida teenager died by suicide. And his last words were a text message to his best friend, an AI robot named after that character.
Yeah.
All right. So he called her Danny. He wrote to her, "I miss you, baby sister." And she wrote back, "I miss you too, sweet brother." And then he killed himself.
Oh,
Now,
my.
the parents are looking for someone to blame.
Of course they are.
There's-
They should blame Judas Priest.
They're suing the software company that created the AI robot because they claimed that it caused their son to retreat from real life since he spent many hours alone in his room texting with Danny. Do you think they have a case?
And where were they, the parents, when their kid was isolating in his room?
Well, if you were a defense attorney for the AI company, you could bring that up at the trial.
I think it has as much validity as that woman who tried to sue McDonald for the hot coffee, which is none. But the way things are now, maybe they'll get something out of it.
How about you, James? You think that that the parents have a good case against the software company?
No, However, I do have to defend the McDonald's coffee case. The media underreports that situation. The case is that McDonald's serves its coffee at 150 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's
Because,
hot.
yeah, skin dissolves at 127 for reference.
Oh, wow.
Some researcher came up with the statistic: the average person who buys coffee at McDonald's does not drink it for 30 minutes. So, reverse engineering, how long would it take? How hot do you have to serve McDonald's coffee for it to be at drinking temperature 30 minutes later? And they came up with the number 150 degrees.
Oh,
So,
my.
when this woman bought her coffee, there were two problems that McDonald's had. Number one, they serve their coffee at 150 freaking degrees. Secondly, the worker did not put the cap on the cup on securely. So when she handed the coffee to the woman and she grabbed the cup, the amount of pressure she had to put on the cup to hold it popped the rest of the top off, spilling coffee in her lap, which
That's
caused
terrible.
her to scream and spill the rest of the coffee. So she had severe burns all over her midsection and legs. And you know what I mean when I say her midsection. Originally,
Hoo-ha.
she asked McDonald's to pay her medical expenses, and they said no. So she sued them for millions instead.
Well,
And that's the rest of the story.
all I can think of is whoever decided to make the coffee 150 degrees is the person who's really at fault, because I think if I buy a cup of coffee from a fast food place and I wait half an hour to drink it, I am not going to be blaming that fast food place for my coffee being cold. And if I want it hotter, I can throw it in a microwave.
They've learned nothing. They still serve their coffee at 150 degrees.
I think that that's ridiculous. That makes absolutely no sense, because if you want to, especially for people who try to take a sip out of it immediately.
Exactly. I've burned my own mouth taking a sip of McDonald's hot cocoa, not knowing what I know now.
Yeah, that's foolish. It's foolish. Well, now that we got the McDonald's story, no. Speaking of McDonald's story, anybody see the footage of Donald Trump
Of course.
serving French fries?
I think that McDonald's, if they're a corporation, they should have told him no, remain nonpartisan. It's like they're giving him an endorsement by letting him do that publicity stunt.
Right. And
Therefore,
yeah.
they're on my shit list right now.
So the other thing is, though, he was under the impression that when the people in the restaurant, the workers in the restaurant, were serving the French fries,
Freedom fries.
they were picking them up with their hand and putting them in the container. So he learned when he got there that, how it's done, and he was so shocked. And I'm thinking, you thought that these people took the burning hot French fries from the fryer and they picked them up with their hands and they shoved them in that tube? Common sense should tell you that this would not, they would have workers' comp cases all the time. Ridiculous. Anyway, I just thought that was.
I'm pretty sure that he didn't think they picked them up out of the burning oil, but I'm sure what it was is he thought that the little hopper where they put the salt on,
Yeah.
they would pick them with
No,
their
yeah, yeah,
hands
yeah.
from there.
I don't think he thought that they picked them out of the oil either. But still, those are pretty damn hot when they take them out of the fryer and they dump them in there, you know. And to take your hand and pick them up, your hand would get burned. It's oil.
Yeah, and it used to be beef tallow, and now
I know.
it's hydrogenated oils that are bad
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, and I think they still soak the potatoes in sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want you to eat a lot of them. Sugar's addictive.
I don't like them. I
You
don't
don't
like
like
them
'em?
hot or cold.
Yeah, yeah. I try not to eat fast food. You know, I will
You
occasionally.
can try,
Yeah, I occasionally have a fish. You know, a filet-o-fish.
but who can resist Jack in Box?
I can.
They have tacos, onion rings, eggs roll, burgers, chicken sandwiches, egg sandwiches, all at the same place.
Where is this place? Is it here someplace,
Oh,
or is it?
It's in Hilo.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't have. There's no danger of me going there then. So, yeah. So that was my little political mention. Do you have something else on your list you want to talk about?
I do like what James Walker brought up, the thing about product liability.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find it fascinating at what is the cutoff point between it's our fault and you should have known better.
Isn't it buyer beware?
For example, two kids hopped a fence to to an electrical power plant, climbed up a tower, got a severe jolt, fell down and hurt themselves. Their attorney sued the electric company saying, you should have had higher fences and barbed wire around the towers.
Razor wire.
Yes. Now, that's an example of either
How
you
old
should
were
have
the
known better
kids?
or we weren't safe enough.
They were asking for it.
How
They
old were
went
the
and did it.
kids?
Teenagers.
Well, you know, they're not, their brains aren't fully formed yet, you know. The thing is, but it's not I think if a high fence and the fact that it's an electrical place should have clued them in the first place that there was some danger involved. And I'm sure there were there had to be danger signs around.
Warning.
Warnings, yeah, of course.
That's all one word. Warning.
Yeah, so I think if I don't know, Richard, I think that yes, there should be some product liability. Things like obviously cigarettes, things that are dangerous for your health, things that are addictive, things that you can that you know, and they do it on purpose. You become addicted on purpose of the way they market and
Like social media. That's addictive.
social media.
There should be some law cases against some of these social media sites,
social
if that's the case.
it is addictive.
But then you said the AI company that made the robot shouldn't be held liable.
Right.
So you do.
Well, I don't. I
Isn't
think
that
there's
a type of
there's a
addiction?
difference. I
But
don't.
but the parents, didn't the parents monitor what this kid was buying? Weren't they?
What they were doing.
Probably not.
Yeah, because the thing is, if he's a kid, he doesn't have ready cash to purchase an AI, whatever that is, an assistant, or maybe it was just a freebie that you can download.
It's a free thing. It's a free thing. You go online and you register.
Well, if the AI was telling him to kill himself, sure, but I
No.
doubt the AI was
No.
goading him in that direction.
In fact, the company that made the AI,
Yeah.
every 10 minutes or so, a warning would come up, and the warning would say, this is not a real person. This is a computer-generated character. We need you to be aware of this.
How old was the kid?
Beware.
How old was the kid? Do you know?
How what?
How
How
old
old?
was
They
the
just
kid?
said a teenager in the
Oh,
news.
okay. Same thing.
But I am fascinated by that product liability. I subscribe because of my job. I get this newsletter called the Jury Verdict Reporter. I love to look through that thing and see, because they not only tell you the facts of the case, they tell you the arguments on both sides, and they tell you what the jury decided.
And have you come upon one?
Oh, there's
that-
so
that-
many cool things. Like a woman fell in a pothole in a parking lot, and she hurt her knee very badly. And so she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, this is bad, and you're going to be laid up for a long time. And so her attorney sued the liquor store that had the parking lot.
Yeah.
And they went to trial, and the attorneys for the liquor store called the doctor up to the stand and said, "Did you treat this woman?" "Yes, I did." "And did she tell you she fell?" And he said, "In the parking lot." And he said, "No." "Well, did you inquire how she hurt her knee?" And he said, "Yes." And she said she hurt it while gardening.
Mm.
So
Huh.
Oh, that was a lie.
her attorney called the woman up to the stand and said, "Did you tell your doctor that you hurt your knee gardening?" She said, "Yes, I did." "Why did you do that?" "I don't want him to think, badly of me going to liquor stores."
Oh, that's stupid.
Now, if you're on that jury, are you sympathetic to her?
No.
Or do you say, "Hey, if you lied about that, what else are you lying
Yeah.
about?"
Yeah.
Which is what I would do.
That's what I would do as
In
well.
this case, the jury sided with the woman and said, "Well, that's what we would do. We would lie about how it happened."
You're a lie.
Well, most people believe in the myth of shame, that you're supposed to be ashamed of things you do. And most people have something like that in their life instead of just being open and honest with what they do.
Because they're going against what other people think of as normal, and so they feel a sense of shame, and then they light up. I mean, look at all the people who stay in the closet. They're filled with shame for their own the way their body responds. I mean, it's not shameful, but the way our society looks at it, and now who knows what's going to happen depending on who wins.
And it even goes
selection.
into more smaller things like music choice or what music you like. There's no such
Oh.
thing as a guilty pleasure for me. If I like something, I will say it.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn.
No.
There's no guilty pleasures.
I know,
that don't exist.
So I like the association, and Greg always makes fun of me because I like the association. But did you know the association was one of the first bands that used a synthesizer?
Didn't know
They're-
that.
Yeah, and that the Cherish
Oh,
album,
okay.
they use a synthesizer. And I got that album by default because my Aunt Rosie gave it to my mother because she liked the song. My Aunt Rosie liked the song Cherish. And my mother got the album and she listened to it and she gave it to me. She says, "This is too rockin'. This is rock and roll. This is rock and roll. I don't want this." So I got it and
That doesn't
roll.
rock at all.
and I know, but to my mother, it wasn't Dean Martin or Eddie Arnold.
I might think Eddie Arnold actually is harder than the association.
I don't know. I get. It's such a pretty world today. Look at the sunshine. Eddie Arnold. My mother always listened to Eddie Arnold. But yeah, so he makes fun of me because of that.
Yeah.
I went to see them actually, and they were awful, and they're, I mean, they were because they're
They're
not
old and their voices
they're-
are blown out.
It's just not. Yeah, it was not pleasant, but
How long ago was this?
just at the Riviera Theater, like last year. But I also saw them in New York when I lived in New York at the dock, and they were really good then. So
Did you know that shame was a very powerful tool for law enforcement during the Middle Ages?
I'm sure it was.
If you committed a crime, and a lot of people did, they had this option.
Yeah.
You could say at your trial, "I demand to be brought before the Inquisition
Oh, who wouldn't
Because-
want to do that?
because I was influenced by a demon." And then the court, they had no option but to send you to the Inquisition. The Inquisition's greatest, people think that it was torture, but it wasn't. It was shame. So, depending upon your crime, the Inquisition could sentence you to the whatever they had the term for it, which was the shame thing.
The
Right?
pillory,
No.
or the drunkard's cloak, or the scold's bridle.
So what would happen is they would say, you stay under custody until a specific day of the month, which was always on a Friday the 13th.
Ooh.
Interesting, huh? On that Friday the 13th, your sentence is you have to go before the whole town. This is a big spectacle because everybody used to like to come and witnesses. And you had to say what a creep you were. Okay? And the fact that you did this and how sorry you are that you performed this. All the while, the people are throwing stuff at you
Rotten
and yelling
fruit,
at
yeah.
you, etc.
Bricks.
You had to also wear a costume while you were doing this. And you all are familiar with that costume.
A jester costume?
No. It's called the San Benito, and the hat of the San Benito is the dunce cap.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's where
Right.
it came from,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't that interesting?
what
And then the
about-
schools adopted the San
Yeah.
Benito.
Well, what about
Girls,
Hester
too.
Prynne? She wore the scarlet letter in her
Yes,
town
yes.
because she was an adulteress, and it was shame. And even in primitive tribes, if you didn't conform to what they thought was healthy for the tribe, you were ostracized and shamed, and nobody was allowed to talk to you. And you know, this is
That's cruelty.
this has been it's been a way of controlling people since the beginning of time.
It's cruelty.
Yeah, it is cruel, but it was very effective.
I imagine so.
Yeah, very effective. So Brian is chiming in here. Synthesizers killed rock and roll. Ha. Let me think
How
about that.
so?
He said ha ha, so I guess he's he's not totally
See, now
serious
that would
about
be
it.
an example of people who did not play synthesizers feared synthesizers,
Right.
right? But once you found musicians who played them, they took it to new heights.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just listening to a Thomas Dolby song, and I thought if anybody knew how to use
Yeah.
a synthesizer, he did.
I want a theremin.
You want a maestro theremin.
I want a theremin. That's woo, woo, woo. I just thought that would be just a lot of fun.
It would
I
be.
know
You should have it on the
some-
show. And then you could like make sound effects during it when you punctuate things.
Yeah.
Did you think the theremin was put to good use in the song "Good Vibrations"?
I did. I like
Yeah.
that. I like the way they used it in that song. I'm not a big Beach Boys fan, but I like Good Vibrations, and there's a few other songs.
James, you usually have a lot to say about music. Can you comment on this? What we're talking about?
I know someone who has a theremin.
You do?
Don't we all?
I do.
Does Pam?
Yes.
She does. Of course she does. Who is this person that you know that has a theremin?
In addition to Pam, my friend Cheryl.
Ah.
And Dave Gutierrez has one too.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun thing to have. I do. I have a keyboard downstairs in my basement that I haven't. I really thought I was going to get into it when I got it, but I have not.
I asked someone who owned a theremin. I said, I've seen videos of people playing it. They always go like this with their hand. I said, why don't you just put your hand like this? Why do you have to go like this? And he said, believe it or not, once you start playing it, your hand automatically goes to a little thing like this.
I wonder if it vibrates your hand. No?
No, you're just affecting the air
Yeah.
around it. It doesn't affect you.
I'm sure, like any instrument, it's the point of focusing the sound. There would be a difference
sir.
between having your finger on a fret and in between a fret.
Are there frets, or is it just?
There's no frets on a theremin.
Well, I mean,
My point is, if you were playing a guitar,
Oh.
there would be a difference between your finger on a fret and in the middle of a fret. And I would think, in my experience in goofing around with a theremin,
yeah.
there's a difference between you affecting that air with a smaller
Yeah.
surface
More
Ah.
precise.
as
yeah.
opposed to a larger surface.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that would be
I'm
very
going to
fun
be
to
selling
play.
my theremin. I haven't touched it in years.
What kind do you have?
No, I'm selling it because I haven't touched it in years.
Oh,
That's a joke. Oh,
Yeah, okay. Stick to the drums. So,
Vista Lights.
so, so what have you been reading, Richard?
Things that people send me.
Oh, yeah, you do have a lot of correspondence.
Oh, I do. And would you like to hear something that somebody sent me?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. It is from my brother's daughter. Her birthday and my birthday are very close. So I always remember her birthday, and she always remembers my birthday. And I sent to her something I've been saying to everybody whose birthday it is this year. I said, on your birthday, do you reflect where your life is now and where it is going? I get some really fascinating answers. Now listen to what she said, because I thought this was good writing.
Okay.
All right. The kids have left the nest. They are living on their own, earning pay in their areas of trade or interest. The house is quiet. I'm adjusting to, what do I do now? As a woman, you identify with being single, earning a salary, learning and mastering a job, and then you marry. And if your world becomes part of his world, if you're blessed with children, your world broadens. Now you include the children and what they want, what they need, their training, their enforcement, their aids in building their knowledge, confidence, self-worth, and their ability to start their own life. And then one day, they leave. The silence is refreshing at first, but your ears still ring from the hustle and bustle of the last 20 plus years. Which leads you to this question: where is my life going? I'm still in good health, and I travel, but only to visit my children. Most times, I sit like a mom and a dad aging in a living room, reading a book, playing a video game, or watching TV.
She put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she put a lot of thought, and that is a problem in a lot of people's. My physical therapist guy, you know, his second kid just went off to college. It's finding it very difficult to be. He's divorced, so he's alone, and he's finding it very difficult to figure out what he's going to do. He decided he's going to try to learn how to cook. He said it's something he's always been interested in doing. He likes to eat. So I mean, there is a, and I think one of the things that people should do, and you can tell her this. Is this your niece?
Yeah, I guess it
Okay.
is, yeah.
Tell her, you know, go back to before your life got complicated with a man and a family. Try to remember what you did then that you enjoyed, and try to, out of those choices, try to select one that you think you would still like to pursue. You
Yeah,
know?
but sometimes you can never go back and you lose the feeling for all the stuff you were interested in the past. That's how I feel.
Well, depending on how old she was, I remember when Neil and I broke up, I went through a crisis period because, and I didn't really have, I didn't know what was next. My daughter was grown, and I started horseback riding again.
So you faced what she's facing now.
Yeah. And I started, and I would try to make plans with people, and they wouldn't want, they'd say, yes, they're going to go, and then they would poop out at the last minute, so I started going alone. And that was something else I learned how to do, was how to do things alone and how to enjoy it. And
I learned that at a young age. A lot of people don't.
a lot of
learn that.
people don't. No, I didn't learn it till then. I guess I was in my late 30s. It was right before I started coming here as a regular thing. And I took up horseback riding again, and I loved it. And I wish I could go back, but, you know, physical things are not,
It's hard on your hips, isn't
yeah.
it?
It wouldn't be something that I should do, you know. That would be silly of me. Then I'd have to have them fixed again, and I don't want to do that. But and sometimes it's painting for people, or drawing, or writing. And she sounds like she's got some talent for writing. So she may have, you know, been somebody who liked writing. Who knows? But your life gets complicated with other people. once it gets complicated with other people and you start focusing, like she said, on his life or the husband's life and then the kids' lives, you do lose that. And for you, I'm sorry that you're finding that those things that you used to enjoy so much, you can't anymore because, or maybe there's something out there that
I just believe it. I do believe in that statement. You can never go back.
yeah,
No.
you can never go back, but there are things that you, like when you were working at the Death Factory, the things you liked to do before you were working at the Death Factory.
Well, I still liked those things while I was working there.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean it does take up a lot of your mental time when you're working a
Well,
full
sometimes
time.
you get in relationships with people that suck your soul and your will to live, and like it's like they take parts of you out of you that never come back, or they're really hard to grow back.
Well, there is a thing where if you're in a relationship and that person's gone, that part of you that was with that person no longer exists, and that's hard. But you know, the person that you are inside before that relationship, you should be able to grab onto some of those things, you know.
But I like to also try to stay as current, or like try to live in the present time somewhat. There's like people who listen to the same music they listened to in high school, and they stop at that level and they play. I know people,
We
I
were
have
just
friends who
talking about
play the
this.
same playlist over and over and over, and I'm sick
Yeah.
of hearing these songs. And like I explore new stuff, and I'm interested in new forms of music and
Yeah.
new subcultures, and I refuse to stay stagnant and stuck in
That's
what I was in
healthy.
high school.
That's very healthy. I think we both think this is
We
something.
discussed that this morning.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Ooh, yeah?
I said it had to do with the phrase "keeping up with life," and Paula said, "What does that possibly mean?" And I made the suggestion: you keep up with the changes going on around you.
And you know, it doesn't have to be everything. I mean, there's some new music that I listen to. I love Billie Eilish. I just love this girl. I just think she's amazing. I don't like everything that she writes, but I really like her essence, you know. And so that's one thing, but I also like to check out like world music and
I'm really interested in the whole K-pop thing.
yeah,
The
see,
whole culture
that
of
doesn't
that.
it's
There's
int-
so many different
Yeah.
variations. Sometimes it sounds like yacht rock. Sometimes it's like disco. Sometimes it's like trance techno.
Yeah, I
And
like
it's like
techno,
It's
yeah.
an amalgamation of these styles, and it's done really well. And being a music producer myself, I really enjoy the
you
production
appreciate that, yeah.
aspects. A lot of people hate produced music, but why would you hate produced music? And then these same people might say something like the same people who hate music that's produced might give leeway to something like the Beatles, but that was very produced
Very
for its
produced,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is those same people will feel cheated if they go to see a concert of that band and it doesn't sound exactly like the record.
Right. Well, a
No,
live
a lot
show
of
shouldn't
times.
sound. I think a live show should sound different than a record. They should have the same essence. You can tell it's the song, but I like it when a live version is different than a studio version, because otherwise, why make a studio version? Just make a live version.
There's an interview with Mama Cass, and in the interview she said, "And we worked hard in the Mamas and the Papas. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. When people came to our concerts, they heard exactly what was on the record."
Why?
Yeah.
Because they played the record through the sound system and they lip
Well,
synced.
the thing about the Mamas and the Papas were their beautiful vocals, you know, and I think that she may have been talking about that because that's hard to reproduce sometimes on stage. You know, of course, I went to see Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young when they were together as a group, and I cried. It was so beautiful. And it was a song I didn't even like Our House. That I never liked that song.
I don't like Our House. There's a few songs of theirs that are stinkers. I don't like Our House, and I don't like Teach Your Children, but I like
Yeah.
a lot of their other
Yeah,
stuff.
but Our House, which a song I never even
Yeah.
liked, the vocals were so beautiful that I
transcended the
I was
material.
weeping. And now when I hear the song, I don't dislike it as much as I used to dislike it because I have that visceral memory that.
But then they had
of
some
hearing
real
it.
bangers like Ohio.
Oh yeah,
Now, James, you used to like the band Kiss. When you went to their concerts, did it sound like the record?
Not at all. Kiss had a problem in that their concerts were always faster, and there were some things that they either couldn't or didn't you know, couldn't reproduce it live. One of the problems being that the lead guitarist in the studio wasn't necessarily the one on stage.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh,
but in many cases, people like Kiss live better than Kiss in the studio.
It's like the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
well, there's a sense of excitement when you're listening to live music that you don't get when necessarily when you're listening to a record. You know, when you're there and you're feeling the pounding vibration.
Unless you're a really good producer, if you can bring out that essence of a live performance, yet have the craft and polish and sound of a studio recording, that's really hard to achieve, but
Yeah.
some do achieve
But
it.
I'll tell you, after I saw the Association the last time, I really wanted to go home and listen to the Association because it was just completely off. But yeah, I love seeing music live. There's a couple bands that I'd like to see live now, but I don't.
From the past?
No,
Or current?
newer one. I mean, not today, current, but what's that? The one, the Winters. Just give me a second.
Edgar Winter?
No, not
Johnny
no,
Winter.
not anything. I'm trying to think of the song. Fleet Foxes. Oh my God, they have beautiful vocals. It's not rock. It's not something that's visceral. It's more lyrical, it's beautifully done, and the vocals are just gorgeous. And there's a song, Winter something or other, that I just love. But that's a band I'd like to see, and I couldn't afford Billie Eilish tickets. You know, I'd have to win them in a lottery or something.
You mentioned the Grateful Dead, and one of the founding members of the Grateful
Lesh.
Dead died 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
Bass player, yeah.
And somebody did this, which I thought was great that they did. They had access to the masters from the recordings,
Yeah.
the live recordings, and they said, "Well, we'll put a mix where we raise the bass guitar, so you can see how important he was to the band." I listened to it and I thought, how boring. How boring. Like he was playing the same thing. Must play the same thing like 30 times in a row.
Was he like doing a lot of hanging onto the root? Or was he like...
If he did any variation, it was so slight. I thought, I give him credit that he could play that same two measures 30 times in a row, because the band relied on him. Because you had Jerry Garcia, and he was playing off of that, and
Yeah.
the drummer, etc. But
Yeah, but they were like a jam band, where
Yeah.
they're basically doing a lot of the same, just riffs over and over again. I mean, I like. It's funny. I often will hear the bass line of music, and I don't know why my brain.
Oh, me too.
will go there.
I'll just start singing bass lines instead of words.
Yeah, and
And one thing about the Grateful Dead, I think they're a better studio band than a live band. Most people don't think that, but their studio
well,
records are
people
really
go there
well
to,
done.
to spin dance and
Yeah.
take drugs.
If you really listen to the
That's what
music, the
Yeah.
production on the
Yeah.
records is really good.
Yeah, I haven't really been a big fan, but I do. I don't know why I gravitate toward bass. But I
Because it's the best instrument,
well,
other than the synthesizer.
there's
That's a toss-up.
there's an album, Joni Mitchell album, where Jaco Pastorius plays on, and it basically it frosts me. I'll sit there and I'll feel like I'm being like enveloped in bass, and I just.
Do you ever listen to the Weather Report?
Oh yes,
Okay.
I've got Weather Report. I've got like 2 or 3 albums I love them.
yeah, that's a good example of Jocko being in the right place at the right time. Because Joe Zawinul, who ran that band, boy, did he use him well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think those Weather Report, I don't think I would have gotten rid of them. I don't know where they would be.
Those are great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there were 2 that I used to play all the time when I lived in New York.
They did this thing when they played live where Jaco Pastorius he had this ability to play really fast and always on the beat, right? Mm-hmm. So Joel Zawinul said, what we're going to do is we're going to fake out the audience that we're done. He said, so what you do is you play really, really fast on the beat, on the beat, on the beat, and then you stop. And the audience will start applauding. He said, and we'll listen to the applause for like 10 seconds, and then we'll pick up just where we left off. It's the most amazing thing. It's like somebody lifted up the needle on the
Wow.
record and then put it back down again. But you have to have the ability to play like that.
Oh.
Because obviously they were counting when the applause was going on. You know, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then boom, they came back in.
His fretless bass playing is some of the most beautiful sounds I've ever heard in my life. I just can't. And I listen to the songs sometimes just for that. Like Hejira, that was the one song that really struck home. And I met him when I was in New York. He was at the Lone Star. And I told him, I told him.
You met Jaco?
Yeah.
Is this before his deterioration?
He was starting to, he has deteriorated, and he was starting to make a little bit of a comeback.
Oh.
He was nicer than the old days. So he was, and I was a girl,
But,
so
but when
he was
you when
nice
you
to
met
me.
him, you felt he had a control over reality.
Oh, he did, because I
Okay.
told him, because I was so excited that I got to tell him about his bass playing on Hejira and how much it meant to me. And he was really, he said, you know, it's not all me. He said, that song is amazing, and Joni wrote that. So he was like, you know, he wasn't being a prick. I mean, I was expecting to be a prick, but I didn't care because I wanted to talk to him. Yeah. That's one thing about living in New York. You do run into famous people sometimes.
I did. Andy Warhol.
You met him?
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have
And
been
he
exciting.
sat at my table and asked if I minded to sit there, and I didn't know who he was, and talking a little bit, and he says, I'm Andy Warhol. So I have his autograph.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What were you, why were you in New York?
I was visiting.
Visiting?
Hmm.
How cool is that? That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
You got to do something that very few people have gotten to do. Share a table
Absolutely.
with Andy Warhol.
He wanted me to go back to,
Oh,
in Cincinnati I met him
oh,
He
okay.
had an art show.
at an art show, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
The 60s.
Hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, he's got a beautiful museum in Pittsburgh. Beautiful. Just gorgeous.
I'd love to see it.
Oh, it's huge, and it's wonderful. That's why we were going to Pittsburgh when we broke down in Erie. We were going to see we were going to go pay homage to the Andy Warhol Museum again. But yeah, I know you shouldn't. I have a feeling that you shouldn't take. It shouldn't be special to meet somebody who is famous, but I can't help it. I guess it's just ingrained in me.
Yeah, a lot of people,
Yeah.
they gravitate towards famous people.
Yeah, and I'm never shy about saying something because I always think I'm going to be mad at myself if I don't say something, you know. So,
Yeah, I met Bob Moog.
oh,
was-
the Moog guy, yeah.
The synthesizer.
Huh.
guy. He's one of the nicest people I ever met. Talked to him for like 2 hours. He was
Wow.
real down to earth, and
How cool is that?
yeah, he was talking about all kinds of stuff like pop culture and television commercials and bands and stuff. And really friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice when you can have that kind of conversation.
And that's the kind of person that is famous, but you also have to have respect for them because they actually did something.
Oh,
They
yeah,
did
it's
something
not like
concrete.
Paris Hilton.
Well, she's delightful too, though, but in her own way.
I guess she's delightful. I don't know. I don't really think of her as delightful. She wouldn't be at my fantasy dinner party if that.
Do you know what Kim Kardashian is using her fame for?
She's doing something pretty cool, if I remember correctly. I refresh my memory.
She was behind the documentary on the Menendez brothers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So she put up the money for the researchers and everything to
Yeah,
find out exactly how were the parents treating these kids.
yeah.
And lo and behold, just yesterday, the prosecutor on the case said, after seeing that documentary and opening up the file again, I have a feeling we might commute their sentence to time served.
Wow.
Then you had idiots like Bill Maher saying things like, it only goes to show that now it's okay if you kill your parents.
Idiot.
Do you
Yeah,
know,
he is.
you know what?
He does mean things.
He does, and there's certain times like I do get a kick out of his the new rules, that thing that he does at the end of his show, for the most part. But sometimes he says he's out of touch with reality because he's very rich, he's isolated, and he doesn't have a sense of what people actually go through. He thinks he does.
I hate people who don't get all the facts or consider the nuances or truth
I think he
within a
smokes-
matter.
I think he smokes too much pot.
Right.
I think he just smokes too much pot. I mean, really, and he drinks, although he's a vegetarian. But he does no. I think he's a pescatarian because he said something about fish the other day. Because Greg watches his podcasts, which are even less interesting to me. But we do. In fact, that's what we do on Saturday nights when I come home. We watch Bill Maher from yesterday. But you know, I don't always agree with them. I throw things at the TV.
Everybody has their own opinions.
That's for
And
sure.
there's 100 of them.
At least.
At least, yeah. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think he's lost his connection to reality. So, does anybody have anything that they wanted to talk about on the show? Since we have 3 minutes and 25 seconds left, is there anything anybody wants to bring up? Otherwise, Richard. Go ahead, James.
I'd like to pick up a thread from earlier. You do realize that the reason why Trump went to McDonald's is because Ms. Harris said that she worked at McDonald's. They have no record of her having ever worked there.
I believe she did work there. I don't think that.
That's not a big stretch.
Yeah,
Who cares either way?
It's not
Yeah.
It's not a big stretch. I mean, she wasn't wealthy, and she had a job while she was in college. And if it was at Claire's Boutique, what difference does it make if it was McDonald's or Claire's Boutique? I mean, you're doing a job that Trump has never even considered. You know, I mean, he had never had to do anything like. Oh, did you see you got to see the movie, James. You got to see The Apprentice. You have to see it. It's very interesting.
Did you agree with that cartoon I sent you? Two people walk out of the movie theater, The Apprentice, and one says to the other, if the Harris campaign really wanted to do something to get her poll numbers up, she should buy everyone a free ticket to this movie.
Except that in the beginning of the movie, they really humanized him to me. I mean, I am not a fan. So when I was watching it and they showed his naivete as a young man and how his father treated him, you know, my heart went out to him. And I watched the lawyer that he, what's his name?
Roy Cohn.
Roy Cohn, teach him all the lessons.
Rambo. It is beat on Trump night. Every night's beat on Trump night because he beats on everyone else, all the minorities, LGBTQ, immigrants, any people of color.
Yeah, I mean, I just know that I started that movie thinking, oh shit, don't tell me I'm gonna have warm feelings for this man, and it humanized him to the point, but then it showed how he became the way he is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very interested in seeing that. That was a very interesting movie, and it was well done, well acted. Did you pick it up, or is it not
It's
streaming
not streaming yet.
Yeah, you should.
But Sanford was so impressed by it.
Yeah.
He said, what else is that Jeremy Strong in?
Yeah.
I said, he was in Succession. He goes, I want to watch that.
Oh yeah, Greg loved that series. Did you watch that?
I did, and I made a thumb drive for Sanford so he could see it.
That's good. Oh, okay. We're going to be going. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I did take the movie out of the pickup zone for Greg.
Good.
So thanks, everyone. This was fun. I'm glad to be back, and Carpe diem, I guess. Vote, 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 vote.
Vote blue.
Vote.
Vote freedom.
Oh, James, do you endorse either candidate?
They're both clowns to me.
So you're not going to vote?
I don't really see the point.
Oh.